I'm ready to go, brother.
I'm on the phone with Clifford Starks. This is Theo Chino. Clifford Starks, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what you want to talk about today.
Hey, what's up, amazing people? I am Clifford Starks. I am here to support entrepreneurs and business owners to grow and thrive in their life and their business. And I do that by asking questions other people aren't willing to ask.
So what are we going to talk about today, Clifford?
So I actually have set an alarm for myself, and it's every morning at 6:05 a.m. Who do I get to inspire today? ? And I set that I set that alarm specifically because I think oftentimes we all want results, but we sometimes don't ask ourselves the right questions. And the way we ask ourselves the right questions is by figuring out how to ask the right questions by taking action.
That's great. Well, and asking the right questions is so powerful because even in today's age of AI, have you played with AI at all yet?
Quite a bit, yes. Okay. I love it.
So AI is amazing, right? And a lot of people are like, AI is not reliable. AI hallucinates. AI is this. AI is that, right? But what's neat is it's just like how people used to talk about Wikipedia. So it's a great place to start. Ask AI questions. Sometimes, it makes it up. Sometimes you can actually argue with AI and go, no, that's not right because of this. And they'll be like, oh, apologies. You're correct, right? So a lot of times you have a better time talking to AI than another person because sometimes people won't apologize or admit they're wrong. But inspiring, tell me a little bit about asking the right questions. And do you have like a rotation list of people you want to inspire every morning? Or is it just one person, or how does it go?
Yeah, I don't ever really know who it's going to be specifically. So sometimes, like today, I know it's going to be, the goal is to inspire you, inspire my team, and inspire my family, because those are going to be the only people that I actually talk to because it's a Saturday. But during the week, it can be an entrepreneur that I just happen to meet. It can be a business owner. I just want to have set the intention on who am I going to inspire. I know I'm going to inspire someone, including myself.
I'm pretty flattered that I'm the person you're going to inspire today. And you know what? You do. You do inspire me. I mean, you really kind of keep the juices going, the creativeness, the drive. And, it's interesting because when you have a list of people who inspire, you made me think of the movie Bernie. You ever see that movie with Jack Black?
Yes.
Okay. So there was that sheriff who was always doing these publicity stunts, and he had what he called the Wheel of Misfortune. I don't know if you remember that part. He had a bunch of open. It was Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey was a character, or was the sheriff. He played the sheriff. And this is Bernie's a true story about one of the only cases ever in American history where a trial had to be moved because the defendant was too well liked by the community. And if you remember what Bernie did, he was living with this very rich widow who eventually, according to the movie, she pushed him too far, he snapped, and she ended up in a freezer. It sounds bad. It sounds really bad. But when you listen to there are real people from that area that were interviewed about this. They're like, Bernie was the sweetest man in the world. And one guy said it. He goes, Bernie was a good, sweethearted man or something like that. He goes, I guess she was just that little bit more evil. She pushed him too far. So, right? And I'm not condoning that, right? I think there's better ways to handle things than the way Bernie handled it. But in the movie, there was the sheriff, and this is why I brought this up. He had a wheel of misfortune. When you said, I'm going to wake up and just inspire somebody, he had like a wheel, just like the Wheel of Fortune, and he had a bunch of warrants that were outstanding, and he had numbers attached to them. And he'd go on TV and spin the wheel, and he'd be like, number 23, and he'd have a baseball bat in his hand. He's like, you're up today. And so, right, so if you thought you had a warrant out for your arrest, because I don't know if you're familiar with how warrants work, but, you know, it's not like the warrant's issued and all of a sudden, poof, the police magically appear at your door and you're in jail. It's, you know, there's a whole process there. And so he was keeping everybody on edge. I don't even know if that's really such a smart tactic. I'd rather have the people I'm going out, you know, trying to arrest who have warrants out for them, not know that I'm coming for them or have them on edge, right? So he was doing stuff like that. But you made me think of, like, this is like the positive version of the wheel of misfortune. You could have a list of 20 people or whatever, spin the wheel and be like, this is who I'm going to call today, right? And everybody's got to be on their toes. And whenever I do my classes, so this is interesting because how interactive do you make this I'm calling to inspire someone thing? Tell me about it. How interactive is it?
Yeah. So I just keep it super simple because I think actually our brains like to overcomplicate everything. So if I were to ask myself, okay, who am I going to inspire today? I don't know who I'm going to inspire today. What am I going to do? I don't know. Like what? And then you get to this procrastination where you're constantly asking more and more questions. It's like I'll do it right now, just to give an example for people. What could I do to inspire you today, Theo?
You know, that's a great question. I think for me, if I could just maybe even have somebody who helps me set my priorities and my direction for the upcoming week.
Perfect. Okay,
I don't know if I'm taking it where you wanted to go.
No, there's no place, like, I don't ever even know where I'm going to go. That's the beauty of the game, is all I can do is ask a question, just like I did. So I can ask my family a question, and I'll ask my team a question. Hey, what can I do to inspire you? Start with that. And then now I know what it would take, and then I would ask probably another question, because yours is not a direct statement, but it's actually going to take a little more probing on my end. But okay, so have you tried setting your priorities before?
See, you are such a good question asker. Yes.
Awesome. And
I'm going to answer your questions like I'm in a deposition. I'm going to say yes, no, and I can't recall. Go ahead.
I love it. So what worked when you went to set your priorities before?
Let me think about that. Those open-ended questions are tough, you know? How you get people in depositions. What worked? I think the most effective thing that worked was always having a sheet, like an Excel sheet, if people know what that is, just a list of tasks, projects, priorities set up that is actually, for me, it's got to be shareable with everybody else that I have to collaborate with to move the tasks and projects along.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's got to be some kind of ranking system in there. So that's what worked the best for me, and so that's it.
Nice. Okay. And then what didn't work?
What didn't work was just a bunch of people getting together and kind of freaking out over the latest fumble or going nuts about the latest shiny thing, right? And that's actually what reminds me a lot of how other jiu-jitsu schools teach jiu-jitsu. A lot of times they're sitting in front of this person who is probably very tough compared to the average person, very flexible compared to the average person, very, a lot of stamina, a lot of skill and coordination compared to the average person. And they somehow became a black belt or a coach in a program. And when their students are sitting in front of them, they're just like deer in headlights, and they're in their brain like, all right, I'm going to swear. Shit. What am I going to show these people, right? And then their brain immediately goes to the last technique video they watched that Gordon Ryan's showing off, or the last thing that happened to them when they sparred somebody, and then they're just paratrooper dropping these people in on this situation with no context. And so I feel like that does not work. What I feel like what works is, it's funny because, there's good and bad to this, but like in the Orthodox Church, there's a lot of chanting, and it seems like just a lot of repetition of the same thing every week. But if you get your chant done, there's also these rap songs that are, it's repeating the same line over and over again. Like, salt and pepper. I love salt and pepper, by the way. But how many times you got to remind me to push it and push it real good? Like, I got it. Push it real good. Okay, But the more and more you repeat it, so when you have a regular repetition of the really important stuff, then, and almost like an Orthodox chant where it's like, I'm going to look at my project list first thing in the morning, right? And then I'm going to reprioritize everything. Then I'm going to call my business partners, and then I'm going to contact my clients, right? It's like you got to have this, like when I'm walking my clients through a process, they try to do too much, and then they come back and they're like, I'm burned out. I can't do this anymore. I'm like, listen, trust the process, relax, breathe, pray, chill. You did, and I see the stuff that they do and how they're going after what I'm helping them with, and I'm like, you are savage. Like, you just inspired me. I could never be that tough. I could never think of doing that to and I'm watching them, and they're inspiring me. I guess the theme today is inspiring, right? People too. But I hope I answered your question in a kind of a long, not too long way, but it's like what worked and what didn't work. And I think what didn't work is just kind of working on whatever scares me or whatever is shiny and I want to go chase at the moment all the time. But I do understand that there's got to be some of that, because if a client calls me up or a potential client calls me up and they're freaking out and they're melting down, I have to decide whether or not I'm going to engage, first of all. But a lot of times if I do have an extra moment, I'll do that. I had to reset someone yesterday. I had to reset their expectations, reset why they were even calling me, and then try to re-guide them into a better direction than I thought, while telling them, hey, this is what I think, but it's your life, so if you don't like it, you can tell me to go bleep myself.
Yeah. Okay. So you gave me some good information. One, you like having something that's structured that you can give to your team. That's what I'm hearing.
Right.
Something where they can actually take action towards. And you also don't like repetitiveness if there's no sense or context around that competitive consistency.
Correct. So repetition is awesome if it's really something important that people will tend to forget.
Oh, 100%. Like if I were to put into context, let's say I'm teaching a smaller fighter how they can effectively be dangerous against a bigger fighter, and even use something like E equals MC squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, right? And saying like mass is a component, but it's not the only component. And when you know how to effectively use speed, then you maximize your energy. Like supporting a smaller fighter over a bigger fighter. And saying you can beat that bigger fighter with the right technique and the right speed.
As long as that bigger fighter's name isn't Jimmy and the smaller fighter's name isn't Theo. My little brother. Got to train with him today this morning. It was great. He's not only is he bigger and stronger than me, but he's also got better technique, and he's just more aggressive all around. And so
and it happens. It happens. Like it's just figuring out, like, okay, here's the equation, and then how are you going to effectively work the equation? But what I notice, sometimes the best way to go at things is to ask questions around that thing. So you say you want to do things with the team. Now ask yourself, okay, what do you want to do with that team? What are you trying to create, convey? What are you trying to create? What are you trying to move towards? And then start saying, okay, what team members would work best? Now some people say, like, okay, you're bringing people onto your bus, onto your car, onto your vehicle, and you're bringing them in and you're putting them in the right seats. And then you're going to a location to do what? And so start with that, like, okay, what is it that I want to do?
See, and audience, if you're listening to this right now, all of you have access to AI, but you don't have access to Clifford, who can help you get to asking better questions, which is what really makes AI dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
So what you just said made me think of introducing something on our podcast. I have there's a guy in Colorado named Michael Caruso, and he has just started what is now known, and it may morph a little bit, but he started something called lawsuitfactory.org. And basically, you could contact him, and for a few $100s, he would consult and create a draft of a lawsuit for you to either just submit yourself, because you can do that, or to give to an attorney to look over and say, does this need any changes, and to significantly reduce the cost of submitting a lawsuit. So the big value here is, I mean, how's he doing this? Well, he's using really high-tech resources that are out there now that we didn't have just a few years ago even. But having someone like Clifford next to you who asks good questions, you know, like I'm calling up because I'm all upset and I want to sue somebody, and Clifford's going to say, well, why are you upset? Well, my leg hurts. Well, why is your leg hurt? Because a dog bit it. Okay, how big was the dog, right? And then now we're getting into, you know, it's like, okay, did it have its rabies shots? You know, all like asking good questions so that you can actually draft a good. Did you try talking to the owner? Yes, they punched me in the face after I told them their dog bit me, right? It's like, okay, all right. You know, so you're taking them down a logical set of questions and a process, and this is beautiful. This is something that I don't know. I mean, I guess you could go to AI and say, hey, could you give me a bunch of good questions to ask my clients? And maybe it'll come up with good ones, and maybe it won't. But then there's that human interaction of, oh, wow, Clifford just called me. I need to talk about something, right? And he's inspiring me. I don't know if AI can inspire you yet.
Yeah, if prompted correctly, I believe that it can. And so Socrates says, know thyself. Such a powerful thing. Because sometimes people don't even know what inspires them in the first place. Because they've never actually sat down to ask themselves the question, what inspires me? And then to ask themselves the even deeper question, what really inspires me? And I say it twice because we're built within the society. And the society tells us, this is what you do, this is how you do it, this is what's right, this is what's wrong. Within the framework of the society. But the framework of the society is not the framework of you. And so you play small, just right enough so that you're not seen as different. Because God forbid, if I were to be different, I don't know what would happen.
There are a lot of people that are wired that way.
Yeah.
And you know what? I guess they also serve a purpose. They could be the NPCs, the non-player characters in the play of life.
Yeah. I think everyone's a non-player character until they choose to be a player character.
Well, let's face it, you and I are just probably non-player characters in billions of people's lives right now.
Yeah.
Until our podcast blows up bigger than Joe Rogan's. Yeah, I just called you out, Joe Rogan.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of the game, is the game is always being played. Always. So when I say, who can I inspire today? Well, the one thing that I do know is I'm looking to inspire someone new, except for Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays and Sundays, because that's family time. That's team time. That's Theo time. But during the week, I know I'm going to inspire someone, and I know I'm looking to inspire someone new. And I also have a system built out, because I know systems and processes are important, that can actually inspire my people while I sleep. Whether they're listening to a podcast, reading one of my books, seeing one of my seminars.
So to your point, a very interesting thing just played out this week to that, inspiring people.
Mm-hmm.
I have to constantly, I'm starting to reshape and rethink why I'm doing this consulting thing that I'm doing. And it's in the space of getting people to realize when they've been overcharged for something. And then educating them on what they can do, helping and coaching them. And then, of course, hopefully, they will appreciate me and compensate me for helping them get back their money. And I had a podcast that I named What About Bob? And he was my last biggest success client who had been sent a large bill by his former lawyer. And he called me up freaking out because he's actually a little mad at me because I was the one that referred him to that lawyer. And I said, well, let me see that bill. He's like, I haven't seen it. He's just asking me to pay him so however many thousands of dollars. And I said, well, first step in the process, ask to see a bill.
Yeah.
All this person could produce was an invoice for the amount. I said, okay, what do you want to do? He's like, well, I like this lawyer. They actually did a good job for me. They're kind of a jerk sometimes, but they went to bat for me. And I said, do you feel like they should be paid anything? He said, yes. I said, good. And then we kind of worked on the whole process. Said, how much do you think he should be paid? He spent this much time in court. He spent time preparing for court. Boom, boom, boom. This is his hourly rate. I understood that. I agreed to that. I said, did you sign a fee agreement? He's like, I don't remember. I'm like, oh, because if you didn't, I go, if you really didn't feel like paying him, he'd have to give you all his money, all the money back you paid. And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't do that to him anyway. I said, okay, And then and we did this on a podcast. It's called What About Bob? I can even put a link up to it. And that podcast actually inspired another one of my next clients down the road, who just this week is my next biggest success in the same arena. There is a father's rights attorney from Chicago who shall remain nameless on our show, who poses as that, but many people feel like he is just a scammer who gets people's hopes up and doesn't do anything for them except for overcharge them and then dump them and leave them high and dry. Well, this guy was one of the people that felt like his victim. He heard the What About Bob podcast, contacted me, asked what he could do, very timid. I had to coach him. I had to coach him on the phone on what to say. I had to coach him when the emails were going back and forth. He finally just got, and it's different getting money knocked off of a bill versus, that's easier than getting a law firm to actually write you a check. And he got a check for thousands of dollars. And he's like, we did it. And I'm like, awesome. And it was just a gentleman's agreement that he would pay me a certain percentage if, anything was recovered. Otherwise, I wouldn't charge him anything. And because I'm still kind of building this business model. And then when the check came in, he's like, guess what? I'm like, what? He's like, the bank told me they need to hold on to this check for a couple of weeks because this account is associated with a lot of fraud.
Wow.
You can't make this stuff up. It's like, you're telling me that when you get a contract from a lawyer, you can't trust it, that it might not be legal? You're telling me that when you get a bill from a lawyer, that it might be wrong, that they might be ripping you off, and they might not even know it themselves because they're so used to doing it, or they don't know what they're doing? You're telling me that when you get a check from a nationally known law office that represents itself, that touts itself as the father's rights law office, that check might not be good. It finally cashed. And the client was finally able to send over his, kind of thank you donation to me coaching him on how to get that money back. So again, at no point during this process did I ever practice law. Did I ever tell him that what I was giving him was legal advice or good legal advice, because there is no such thing. But what I did do was guide him through the process and how to do the informal, like client complaint, right, to them to do the discovery, and then biggest success, yes. And then how did it all start? With inspiration from Bob. So we're kind of, hopefully that inspiration is just building upon success, etc.
Yeah. No, I love that. You actually had me in mid-action change my alarm. So thank you. And I'll share with you what you did. So it actually doesn't start with a question. It actually starts with an intention. Because what question do I ask? Well, it starts with, what intention do you have? And so I'm going into intention to focus and inspire others. And it's going to be my daily alarm.
It's great.
Yeah, intention to focus and inspire. And the reason it's intention to focus, and you know what? In fact, I'm going to, instead of putting a question mark, I'm going to put an exclamation point. 3 of them, actually, because I like 3.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, me three.
Yeah. It makes it super exciting. So the intention to focus and inspire others, because I want, inspiration is important, but inspiration without focus can be very dangerous.
Yes.
And I'm here to help people get their dreams, get their realities, get their desires, get what they want. And when my whole thing, it was a statement that said, I want to fight in the UFC in less than a year. That's where it started. Then the questions began. Okay, how am I going to do that? Who am I going to work with? What do I have to train? How many reps do I have to put in? So thank you.
You're welcome. And you know what? It's a good thing you didn't know me back then. Because you would have said, it's my intention to fight in the UFC in a year or less. And I would say, why? Why do you care? And all I'd be doing is trying to talk you out of it so you could just train with me. Fun fact, by the way. I may have said this before. So some of the most highly trained, just savagely dedicated to their training soldiers in history were the Spartans of ancient Greece, right? And fun fact about them. Yeah, you think you do. you wouldn't like them so much if you're around them. They were a bunch of jerks, really, but they had to be, right? I mean, they were dedicated to war. That was the only reason they lived and breathed. And everything they did had a tie-in to being the best at warfare, including how they procreated. They used to practice eugenics. They used to say, okay, got a big, we got a strong, super tough woman who doesn't need to eat much and is a real killer. She should have lots of kids with this strong, super tough guy who doesn't eat much and is a real killer, Yep. And, being fast and being this and being that. And it was all geared towards war. Even their lovemaking was because it was for the purpose of making better warriors and better war.
I freaking love those guys. And I'll tell you this, I would try and win by using emotion, because I would think where they're strong in one area, they would lack in another.
So
it's an assumption.
You are not wrong, because the Spartans, one of their biggest downfalls was, well, number one, a lot of people didn't understand. Well, a lot of people would never guess this, but when you really think about how they thought, why I just thought about them was when I said, had I known you when you said I want to fight in the UFC, I would have said, don't do it, Clifford. Why do you want to do that? And then you kind of give me some answers, like, I want to be a champion. I'm like, no, what's the big deal about being a champion? And I'd talk you out of it because I want you to train. Because the Spartans' whole thing was, if we're going to war and dying, then how are we going to keep training for war?
Yeah.
And getting better, which is crazy, right? It's like, wait a minute. Your whole purpose is to be good at war, but you don't want to fight wars. And they did a lot of things, like the whole thing with Leonidas, Leonidas and the 300 Spartans, just him and only 300 Spartans going, was because it was on some moon festival, and that's why they didn't want to send the whole Spartan army up there. I mean, that battle of Thermopylae would have been very different if the whole Spartan army would have went with them, right?
Yeah.
But instead, they had a bunch of other Greeks, like and a big group of Greeks that were with them were the Thespians. Now, you know that word, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm a thespian. I'm an actor, right? It's like, hey, could you stop acting like you're fighting and kill some invaders of Greece? So, the fun fact about them is they loved preparing and being ready for war so much that they actually didn't want to risk dying in war, because then they couldn't train anymore. So I would say, Clifford, I don't want you to fight in the UFC because you're going to get hurt and then you can't train with me anymore. And training is the most important thing. Being ready to fight. And you're like, well, why am I always ready to fight but never fighting? I'm like, don't worry about it. Just be ready. Just be ready, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, I walk around some days, and some days are better than others, but some days I'm walking around, I'm like, oh, my hip. Oh, boy, I'm stiff. Oh, I don't know if I could make it up that step, And I'm like, what did I do all that for? I can't even move right now if something happens, But I'm sure if the adrenaline...
How old are you, brother?
I'm 54, made in 71 in America.
Nice.
Yep, I always say I'm made in 71 in America with foreign parts.
I'll let you know how I feel at 54. I know this much. I'm 43 now. I'm literally walking upstairs at the moment. And my coach would tell me, wait until you're old like me, Cliff. Wait until you're old like me. I started fighting. I was 29 at the time.
That's kind of old to start fighting.
I started fighting old, yep. And Trevor was around 37, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And Trevor would tell me about what's going to happen when I get older, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. And I'm in superb shape. And he goes, wait till you get older, Cliff. Wait until you get older, Starks. And I go, Trevor, I'm your age now when you were saying that, when you first started saying that. And he goes, what? I go, yeah, I'm 37 now. And I feel great. And so what I started seeing is, one, I'm an optimistic. I'm very optimistic. Two, I'm very realistic, too. I'm actually both. So I'm very, very practical in what I'm doing and how I'm showing up. And so ultimately, as I started seeing, I'm constantly acting to learn and to know.
That's
My
great.
son's talking.
That's okay. That's great. And we're currently 35 minutes in almost. How much more time do we have?
So about 5 minutes, because the kids just woke up, and you know how that goes. So
I sure remember. I remember those lovely days. I know what that's like. See, now I know why you always you're like, I got to go in a little bit. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now, I didn't know if you had some appointment or something. Now I get it. I had this student of mine this morning, 6 a.m. training, because that's the only time in the week he can do it, because he's got to be home before the kids wake up.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so as I was going through it, I go, oh, my goodness, I am a realist and an optimist. And what most people Most people, from my perspective, are very pessimistic because our brains are built to be pessimistic.
Yeah.
Even the Spartans were pessimistic. They're like, fuck, we're gonna train, we're gonna out-train everybody, so we never have to do this thing, and then we're gonna continue to train so that we're ready no matter what. People want to be ready. People want to be prepared. And I know the only way to prepare is to figure out how to prepare when you're unprepared. And the only way to prepare when you're unprepared is learning how to prepare. Because then you start saying, oh, I messed up here, or I messed up here. So I go, oh, the game is a game of critical thinking. And as I go through my journey, the biggest thing that I've learned is there's a lot more that I don't know than that I do. And so every action I take, every question I ask, everything that I do, as long as it's towards an intention, I can figure it out. If it's not towards an intention, it doesn't really matter. It's like telling a taxi driver, hey, taxi, where are you going? I have no effing idea. You could just drive me around and I feel where I'm going eventually.
Follow that car. That car looks like they know where they want to go. You know, I had the same, so this whole inspiration thing yesterday when one of my potential, she's going to be one of my best intake specialists for this business that I'm building. And she called me up and then she called me up complaining about her current boss who's just a complete psycho. This lady's just crazy. She's going to kill somebody. And she called me up complaining about her boss. I'm like, stop. No, stop.
Yeah.
This whole thing is not going to work. She's like, what? And I'm like, listen, I'm going to sit here and listen to you spew about this person for an hour. And I've heard enough. I go, you're not, first of all, nothing's going to last forever. We're not going to live forever. You're not going to, no job is going to last 50 years nowadays. This job doesn't sound like a great job at all. And then, you know, I said, listen, you need to do this thing with me. And she's like, yeah, but what about this? And what about that? And here comes the pessimism, right? She's an incredible person. But there it was. And I go, hey, and she claims she reads the Bible and believes in the Bible. I'm like, hey, you remember faith of a mustard seed? And she's like, wait a minute, I don't. And I'm like, yeah. I go, I'm not asking you to have. She's like, yeah, but how's this going to work and how's that going to work? And what happens if I fail there and blah, blah, blah and all this stuff. And I said, listen, I'm not asking you to have the faith of a mountain to produce, to go after something the size of a mustard seed. I'm asking for the faith of the size of a mustard seed to make mountains happen with us and what we're working on. And she's like, whoa. And I go, I'm not telling you to quit your job right away, even though it sounds like it's horrible there. And I'm worried about your safety with this lady. I mean, she's out there. I said, but you do what you got to do to take care of yourself and your bills, etc. Make sure you have enough to eat and a place to sleep and all that stuff. Do whatever you got to do. But if you have time to call me up and complain about her, you probably have time to help me build this business. So I could sit there and listen to you complain for thousands of hours about this woman, and eventually you wouldn't have a job there anymore, and none of us would have produced anything. Or we can just take let's say almost all of that time and divert it to this activity, and maybe same result, maybe nothing. But at least we tried to make something happen, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I do remember I actually heard that scripture on one of my posts. I was writing down about leadership and faith and the power of faith. And what was interesting, so when I told Trevor I want to get into UFC in less than a year, he looked at me like I was crazy. And he sat me down and he talked to me about what I was actually saying I wanted to do and how crazy it was. And in my head, like I was already there in my head because I'm a visionary, so I see things before they even exist. And I go, well, can we at least try? That's all I ask. Can we try?
Yeah.
And he goes, all right, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. In 5 weeks, so I don't want to just inspire myself, you, my family, and my team. I want to inspire the audience. Even if it's just an audience of one, I don't really care. So if anything does inspire you, please let me know. Please share it out. Me and Theo would absolutely appreciate it. But what I saw was even if no one else believes, actions start making people believe.
Correct.
The right actions lead to the right results. And so you just taking an action, and people using the word fail, which drives me nuts, because it's just, you're getting closer. You're closer than where you were if you didn't do it at all. And so I want people to take action, because action actually leads to critical thinking. Because no one wants to screw up. And I realized, I go, wait a minute, no one wants to screw up. And in not taking action to not screw up, they're screwing up.
Yeah. They're just so hyper-focused on not screwing up, it messes them up.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, looks like we're at our time limit.
Yeah.
So, Clifford.
So, appreciate you as always.
Yeah, and tell everybody how to get a hold of you and leave them with the thought.
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn under Clifford Starks. And the thought is, Theo, really your thought. The faith of a mustard seed.
That's
You'd
right.
be surprised how strong you can be.
Yeah, I mean, just a tiny little bit. I'm not asking for everything, right?
Yeah.
Just give it a try, right? I mean, Isn't that how people get hooked on drugs? Hey.
Oh yeah.
Right? Just try
this. For the drug that supports you.
Right? It's like, just try this little puff of this. Just try this little drink of this. Isn't that how they become a raging alcoholic or a drug addict? You know what? Give them something good to just try. Try this little mustard seed of faith and to make this thing work that hopefully is something good, not like doing drugs.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs, kids. That's my thought of the week. Don't do drugs as I'm about to drink my coffee.
And I say, hey, everyone's on their journey. Everyone's on their path. Whoever's listening to this, just have faith.
Amen, brother. Love you, bro.
Love you too. Have a great one, brother. Have a great one, everyone. Take care.